Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. In a daring escape, notorious inmate mVFX 637 has broken free from prison walls. While sightings have been reported, authorities have yet to capture that handsome devil. Lock your doors, folks. mVFX 637 is on the loose. Stay tuned for more on this thrilling chase. And now, on to the tutorial.
Hello, this is George Edmondson with MotionVFX.com. Today we are looking over mStyle Newspaper. Once you've installed mStyle Newspaper via mInstaller, it can be located in your titles, as well as your transitions. mStyle Newspaper comes with 5 transitions. If you scrub over those, you can get a real-time preview of how those look and how they may affect your footage. And the same can be said for your titles. So up in your titles, we've got several components. So this is an animated arrow, an animated cross there. We have our drop zone, a highlighter, a line, some off-screen lights, outlines, backgrounds, and print. Then we have different camera movements, and you can see how those camera movements will affect your footage. We have some overlay effects, so we have an anamorphic effect, some blurring, some film dirt, grain, etc. Then we have 3 presets that come in really handy. And then we have a bit of typography down in the bottom for various purposes. So you can see I've got some clips down here in my timeline, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. First thing I'd like to do is let's grab our paper background. We're going to click and drag this in on top of our clip, and we can extend that timing. And then you can see how there is a background. So you can see we've got some on-screen controls over in our canvas so that you can put your background wherever you'd like for position, scale, and rotation. And then we have animations in and out, along with different types of animation modes. And then if you're using the curl, you've got some various parameters here. And then you've got all of your position, scale, rotation, opacity, blending, and then paper mode. And you can see that there are multiple textures and multiple styles. We're going to leave that on 8. The next thing I'm going to do is grab my drop zone out of my components there, and let's just drag that in. And then you can see that we have our drop zone along with position, scale, rotation, and a few other adjustable parameters. So beneath here, you can see in my timeline that I've already got this clip as a compound clip. Now I'm doing this because our drop zones do not play back video properly unless they are a compound clip. This is a limitation that is within Final Cut Pro. So just be aware that if you want video to play, it's usually best to put it in a compound clip, and that way you know that that should play back for you. We do have multiple tutorials as well regarding drop zones and best practices, so I encourage you to check those out if you ever run into any issues or questions for drop zones. So I'm going to populate that drop zone. I'm just going to click my drop zone well. I'm going to go ahead and select this clip here in my timeline. And then I'm going to click apply clip, and then you should see that that is playing back with a video. Now, if I wanted to make it a freeze frame, I can just click this here, and now we have a freeze frame on our drop zone. I think the video is really cool. A popular movie based on a wizarding world uses this look a lot in their newspapers, so I love it. And we are going to use it. So as you can see, we've got our position, scale, rotation, etc. And then if we wanted to use this tool to fine-tune our mask, we do that as well with our on-screen controls, and we will get into why that's important. And then, of course, you have your various drop zone parameters over, along with some other goodies like halftones and chromatic aberration. All right, let's continue to move on. We've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So the next thing I'd like to do is, why don't we grab our print, and we are going to just drag that in on top. and let's make sure that that is the proper length. And then you can see that we've got all of this print going on. I think that we need to change the color, so we're going to go ahead and go over into our inspector, and why don't we just change that to black. Now we can see our print, and then we've got these on-screen controls for position, scale, rotation, etc. And we are actually going to bring that print beneath our drop zone. There we go, and now that looks a bit better. So we've got our print here, and we've got our mask where we can place this so that we can create blocks in our text. We will then work with our drop zone to make sure that we are scaling that into those blocks as well. So that looks pretty good there. And we go back to our print and we just use this mask here. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap there above the print so that we can add a headline. But over in our inspector, if you wanted to look, we do have, again, we've got our on-screen controls, but then we've just got a few bits of information for our print, like our print scale, the rotation, color, opacity. Then we've got our mask that we can toggle on and off, and all of the adjustable parameters beneath, as well as a mask blur if you wanted to add a bit of a blur. I like the hard lines for this look. All right, so now why don't we add one of our titles? So let's go down and we can find our different titles here in typography. I'm just going to use title number 1. So we're just going to drag that in, and we are going to use our on-screen controls here for position, scale, and rotation to place that right there in sort of our title section. I'm going to come over in our inspector, and we've got all of our title information and such, and I'm going to just change that text as well to black. I'm going to click and drag my title color onto my subtitle color, and that way we know that we're good to go. For color, we can change our text, and if we wanted to change the size of our font there, we'd be able to do so here. And then our subtitle. So now we've got breaking news. Inmate 637 has escaped. Oh no, and that's me. And y'all might remember that video from the mStyle 2 video, which was a lot of fun. All right, so let's continue on down. And now I would like to do sort of an outline that we are just circling that. So we're going to click outline on components. We can drag this in as well. I'm going to bring that down a bit just because I like how everything kind of animates. So we've got breaking news, and then we've got our outline. We've got on-screen controls for our outline here for like a master, position, scale, and rotation. And then we also have our different path that's kind of being drawn, and you are able to focus that in however you would like. Over in our inspector, if you would like to make changes to animations in and out, you can toggle those on and off, and then you can make the position, scale, rotation adjusting parameters here, along with our outline color, our outline width, if you'd like to make that thicker or wider, our roughness on our outline, and then the different positions that those on-screen controls are going to be really useful for. All right, now I would like to do sort of a zoom around, so we're looking at the newspaper article and what's happening. So I'm going to use my multiple zoom ins because this is so much fun. So I'm just going to drag that in on top, and you can see that we are starting. We have position 1, and then we go to a position 2, a position 3, and then back out. So let's go with our playhead, and we're going to just find the position 1, which is going to be this on-screen control here, and I'm just going to use that to quickly get to my breaking news section. So we're really focused on that breaking news. Over in our inspector, if you need to fine-tune, if you lose your on-screen control for any reason, you can do that here. Now, of course, you can change the percentage and then you get your on-screen control back, but in case you didn't know that, you can use your movement targets here as well. You can also change how many targets you want. So that's our first section. And then we're going to go to number 2, which is going to be this on-screen control here. So let's say that we really want to focus in on the bad guy, inmate 637 has escaped. And then our last on-screen control can be maybe just a bit of a zoom back out to show that section, and then it's going to just pop right back out to the beginning. So really cool. We've got breaking news, inmate 637 has escaped. Now notice that because my zoom ins are above my outline layer, my outline is also being zoomed in too. So that's a really good way to remember that you need to do these in stacking order, and anything that you put on the top is going to affect everything beneath in your layers. All right, so now why don't we just add a little bit more to kind of make all of this cohesive with a good look to it. So we're going to add our film dirt quickly on top. And you see we've got some adjustable parameters over here, fine and thick, fine or thick. And then our film dirt color mode, we can either do light or dark. And then we can adjust the frequency, opacity, and the scale. Then we are going to add our grain. So let's drag this in on top and above. Again, a few on-screen controls, not a lot, but you don't need a lot because it really looks amazing out the box. And then we have blurring. So why don't we grab our blurring overlay effect. Now this one does have some on-screen controls, so you can see we have this kind of first on-screen control and this second one. So what that's doing is this is sort of your focus point, and this is going to be your feathering and how large that focus point is. So let's say that we really want our viewers to focus mostly here. That is going to do that. Also notice that we are not being affected with our zooms. So it's kind of just keeping everyone focused in on this sort of left side of the screen. In our inspector, we have a blur mode if we want a vignette blur or a gradient blur. You can see how that's affecting our footage. We have our strength, and then we have our vignette blur adjustable parameters, as well as our inverting if we needed to invert. Last thing I want to do is the off-screen light. So I'm just going to drag that in on top, and that just gives us a little pop of color on our newspaper there, just if you want it. So there is an on-screen control here, and you can see how that is affecting our footage. But that's a great way to kind of highlight that text. Over in our inspector, animations in and out, we can toggle that on and off. And then we have our position, opacity, our blending mode, and then our color and our radius. Cool, and that is our first composition. Really, really cool. All right, let's move on to our next one. In this next one, I'm just going to use this really silly photo of me walking like a goofball, and we're going to use preset number 3. So I'm just going to drag preset number 3 in on top of our clip. Now I can disable this one as well because we are just going to use our drop zone. So in preset 3, why don't we go ahead and let's turn off animations in and out so we can see what's going on. And then let's scroll down, and we've got our drop zone, and I'm just going to use this image here as our drop zone and click apply clip. And now you can see there I am. So let's go back up. We've got our title, so we can make changes here if we would like to. We've got still at large written in there. And then if we wanted to do any subtitles, we can do so here. Just do new information, exclamation points to get people interested in what we have to say. We have a camera mode, so you can see that that camera is just kind of pushing that way. But then we can change this to movement or no movement, and then you see it's just a newspaper. And then we can change that movement from left or right, so then now you see it's moving in the opposite direction. We have a camera depth of field amount. We have a near focus. and a far focus, so you are able to quickly make sure that your viewers are only looking at the content you want them to look at. We also have an on-screen control, and that is again going to be for sort of where you want that to be highlighted. Or you can bring it off a little bit just to throw a little pop of color. You can do whatever you think looks good there. We have all of our drop zone parameters along with our different shadow colors, highlight colors, colorization mix. We have it set to color burn as our blending mode, but if you did want that to be in color, you just drag that drop zone colorization mix down, and there you go, you can have that in color. And then we scroll down, we've got our halftone angle, we've got the on-screen light parameters, we have the newsletters, so you can move the slider up and down and you can dim those newsletters if you would like. We have the opacity for that kind of back layer, and then we've got our background color, and then we've got different textures, so different just overlays on those newspapers. I think 6 looks really good for this, so we're going to leave it. All right, let's see how that looks. Super cool. All right, why don't we move on to one more? This other preset is really neat, so we're going to use that in conjunction with a few other things. So why don't we use preset number 2? And I want you to notice with preset 2, you don't have to fill a drop zone. It is going to automatically populate whatever is beneath that preset. So notice we don't see that image until it pops in beneath. Now, it is also going to take into consideration how the image or whatever you're using beneath is formatted. So I have my image selected, and if I go in and use my transform, you can see that that is going to transform that image. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to reset that parameter, and I'm going to set my spatial conform to fill. And boom, it is just now going to perfectly fill and align that space. So just keep that in mind. So that also means that if you click this and drag it on top of something else, it is going to take into account what is playing beneath. So it will play videos beneath for you under preset 2. Cool, so you see that it just kind of animates that in, so it's really, really cool, really well thought out, and then it animates it right back out into the image. But we do have some on-screen controls. We have one, and that is going to be our off-screen highlight. Over in our inspector, with the usual animations in and out, we have our printed elements colors, along with where you can change your text and fonts. Now, if you wanted to freeze your footage, if it was playing a video beneath, you just toggle this, and then you can freeze whatever image or whatever video is playing beneath on that specific frame that it begins on. And then you have your camera mode, so you can have movement or no movement. And then you have all of your camera depth of field, wriggle positions, etc., along with, again, your off-screen light parameters and your paper mode. So different modes here that you can see how that's affecting your footage. So why don't we build something without any footage or anything like that? So we can go up and grab our paper background again if we would like, and we can use this just as a backdrop. So we have that. We've already talked through this. So why don't we now grab title number 3, and we can drag this in on top, and you see that we've got just kind of animating in. We have our usual on-screen controls. I'm going to change this color to black. Or actually, why don't I do just more of kind of a gray? That looks good. And then I can click our title color, drag it onto our line color, and now we know that those colors are going to match. Really, really cool. Why don't we grab one of our components here, so we can grab our highlighter and just drag this in, and you can see how that's going to animate. So I'm going to drag this back just a bit in my timeline So we have the title has animated, and then the highlighter animates. We have on-screen controls, sort of a master, and then we've got a thickness, and then a length. So if you wanted it to just kind of be like that, where it's not really grabbing the whole thing, there's a little bit of text shining through, then there you go. Highlights in. We have animation direction, left or right. We also have all of the position, scale, rotation, opacity, and blending modes. We have the highlighter type, so we have 3 of those, depending on the look that you are going for. And then we have the highlighter color, and then we have the highlighter flip. So if you want to kind of flip that type, you can do so here. We can also throw a quick anamorphic on. So why don't we do an overlay effect here? So it's just going to kind of give that sort of anamorphic look. So that's doing some blurring and such. I want to show you really quickly one more time how that anamorphic effect does look. It's not really showing up on the paper and title that I was using. So we're going to grab the anamorphic effect and just bring that in over top of our main clip here. And I'm going to toggle that on and off so you can see what it's doing. Really good, just kind of stretch and blur that it's adding, a bit of chromatic aberration. We do have our on-screen controls here for position, and you can kind of scale that in and up. And the rotation tool here is actually just going to be increasing and decreasing the effect strength. So it's not necessarily going to be rotating, but it will adjust the strength of the effect. And that's about it. All right, let's hop back over. Last thing that we will talk about are transitions. So let's say that I want to transition from our preset into our little composition that we just built here. So I'm going to turn off my animation from preset 2. And then we have this all happening here. I'm going to grab all of this, highlight Option G to make a compound clip. And then I'm just going to drag this composition a little bit above our composition that we had prior. And then let's use the printed shift because I think that looks really cool. So I'm just going to drag this in, can delete that last one there, and then we can see that it is just going to take that, it's going to push it over into there, and then here we go. So notice that the animation has already started happening. So I'm going to teach you all a fun little bonus trick here. So we're going to go into our compound clip, and we are going to go back to the beginning with our playhead, Option W, and that is going to make a gap clip. Then let's go back out, and you can see that our gap clip is happening in here. When you are using your transition, you can kind of drag through and you can see where that's going to start. See? So now it's going to make it longer, but it's going to start that animation right there if you wanted it to be that way. And that is about it for me. Thank you so much for checking out this very fast-paced but informational tutorial on mStyle newspaper. It is now available on MotionVFX.com. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.